The Israeli occupation army killed 32 Palestinian civilians after bombing a United Nations agency school in the central Gaza Strip. In the Netherlands, more than 13 million citizens head to the polls on Thursday to elect a new European Parliament. And in Cuba, the social communication law was presented after getting approved by the National Assembly in May of 2023. Hello and welcome to From the South. My name is Belén de los Santos, and from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba, we begin with the news. On Thursday, the Israeli occupation army killed 32 Palestinian civilians after bombing a United Nations agency school in the central Gaza Strip. In this sense, the Wafa news agency reported that hundreds of displaced Palestinians were sheltering in the Al-Saadi school in the Nusrat refugee camp, which was targeted by the Israeli army. Meanwhile, local authorities reported that a large number of dead and wounded bodies arrived at the collapsed Al-Aqsa hospital. The Palestinian resistance movement Hamas condemned the attack as a horrible massacre and said that among the victims there were many women and children. Since the October onslaught of its genocidal war against Palestine, Israel has killed 36,586 people and wounded more than 83,000. And images were released on Thursday morning showing the devastation caused at the Nusrat Preparatory School for Boys affiliated to the UNRWA. Local sources reported that an Israeli warplane attacked the upper floors of the school compound at night while the people were sleeping. UNRWA schools throughout Gaza have functioned as shelters since the beginning of the genocidal war perpetrated by Israel, which has displaced most of the territory's population. According to UN agencies, more than 200 schools have been attacked since October 7th. And in Spain, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, José Manuel Álvarez, announced on Thursday the inclusion of the country in the lawsuit against the Israeli aggression of the Palestinian people filed by South Africa before The Hague. From Andalucía, our correspondent Sergio Rodrigo offers us more details.
Very good morning. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Spanish government announced this morning that Spain will join South Africa's lawsuit before The Hague against Israel's genocide in the Gaza Strip. The Minister of Foreign Affairs himself has announced it today, in which he has assured that he does it to preserve international law but also to give greater capacity to this Court of the United Nations so that it can carry out all kinds of actions in the situation in Gaza and to achieve the end of the conflict not only in the Gaza Strip but also to bring stability and peace to the Middle East. In addition, Minister Álvarez insisted that this measure joins the measures that are being taken and also joins other countries that are joining South Africa in this international demand. He also supported the precautionary measures announced by this court, in which among them was requested the arrest of Netanyahu. The Prime Minister of Israel accused in this international conflict, and in which now Spain also joins this international lawsuit, in which he assures will work and collaborate with the court to try to continue adding evidence to stop and reach a peace agreement to end the conflict in the Gaza Strip. All this has also occurred in this climate a few days since Spain recognized by the Spanish government to Palestine as a full state within this nation of the European Union.
Affairs of Spain, José Manuel Álvarez, ratified his support for the peace initiatives for Gaza and the two-state solution. Let's listen.
We reiterate our support for peace initiatives such as those launched by President Biden, together with Egypt and Qatar. With this intervention in the International Court of Justice, our sole objective is to put an end to the war and finally move towards the implementation of the two-state solution, which is the only guarantee of peace and security for Palestinians and Israelis and for the whole region. They all have a right to peace. The same right.
In other news, in the Netherlands, more than 13 million citizens go to the polls on Thursday to elect a new European Parliament. In this context, polling stations will remain open until 9 p.m. local time to allow voting for 31 members of the 751 that make up the European Parliament. According to the latest polls, the far-right Party for Freedom, led by Geert Wilders, is leading the polls ahead of leftist candidate and former European Commission Vice President Frans Timmermans. It should be noted that more than 370 million people in the European Union bloc are eligible to vote in this parliamentary elections. And the Prime Minister of Slovakia, Robert Fico, accused the opposition and the anti-government media of generating a scenario of hatred that led to his assassination attempt on May 15th. In his first public statement after the assassination attempt that took place 3 weeks ago, Fico thanked the medical staff for saving his life while stressing that the attack came from foreign-backed politicians. He also recalled that he had been warning of probable political violence for several months and criticized the major Western democracies for fueling hatred. After returning to power last October, the Slovak Prime Minister halted military aid to Ukraine, aligning himself with a policy of peace and thus upsetting NATO.
The 15th of May in Hanlova, a Slovak opposition activist tried to kill me because of my political views. The great medical team of the Roosevelt Hospital in Banska Bystrica prevented the worst.
In this way, the Slovakian Prime Minister also denounced the campaign against him orchestrated by media outlets that answer to billionaire George Soros.
For now, I will confine myself to saying that the attack has caused me serious damage to my health, repeated operations and a lot of pain and suffering. It will be a minor miracle if I am able to return to work in a few weeks. I would like to ask the anti-government media, especially those owned by the financial structure of George Soros, not to go down this way and to respect not only the seriousness of the motives of the assassination attempt, but also the consequences of this attempt.
On Wednesday night in the Czech Republic, a high-speed train collided head-on with a freight train, killing at least 4 people. The crash took place in the city of Pardubice, which is located some 100 kilometers east of Prague. The passenger train, owned by the private company RegioJet, was traveling overnight from Czech capital to the city of Chop in western Ukraine. The Interior Minister Vít Rakušan regarded the accident as a tragedy for the country and confirmed that 23 people were injured out of the 380 traveling abroad. After rescue operations ended, the Transport Minister Martin Kupka stated that the main line between Prague and the eastern part of the nation would have to be closed while the authorities investigate the causes of the collision. Now let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. A naval detachment of the Russian Federation will pay an official visit to the port of Havana from June 12th to 17th. The Russian naval group is composed of 4 ships, the frigate Gorshkov, the nuclear-powered submarine Kazan, the fleet oil tanker Pashin, and the salvage tug Nikolai Chikir. According to the Cuban MINREX statement, the visit is in line with the historical friendly relations between Cuba and the Russian Federation and strictly complies with the international regulations to which Cuba is a state party. MINREX specified that none of the vessels is a nuclear weapon carrier, so their stopover in Havana does not represent a threat to the region. In Cuba, also, a social communication law was presented on Wednesday after getting approved by the National Assembly in May of 2023. The legislation that regulates the social communication system for the management of processes in the organizational, commercial, media, and community areas will enter into force in 120 days. In this regard, the president of the Cuban Association of Social Communicators, Rosa Maria Perez, pointed out that the law promotes the development of marketing and advertising with a scientific vision and advocates for education and instruction in the area. The president of the Union of Journalists of Cuba, Ricardo Ronquillo, stated that the document collects the struggles faced by decades by journalists and communicators and serves as a step forward in the transmission of the country's press model. In Haiti, 5 million people are victims of the biggest food crisis since the 2010 earthquake. According to a report published by the United Nations from the Central Kitchen of the World Food Program in Port-au-Prince, the agency's director, Jean-Martin Bauer, indicated that of the 5 million people suffering from acute food insecurity, close to 1.6 million are classified as emergency food insecure, the highest figure ever recorded. The problem in the country worsened at the beginning of March after criminal groups tightened their grip on the Haitian capital through coordinated attacks on police stations, freeing thousands of prisoners from jail. We go now to Venezuela, where hundreds of citizens mobilized in the state of Bolívar in support of the government and in rejection of the sanctions imposed by the United States against the country. The demonstration was led by the President of the National Assembly, Jorge Rodriguez, and the Executive Vice President, Delcy Rodriguez. The people gathered in the streets to show their support to the policies implemented by President Nicolás Maduro. Moreover, the citizens raised slogans in rejection to the sanctions imposed by the U.S. government. It should be noted that these mobilizations are being carried out throughout the national territory, as indicated by President Maduro.
Those who stole our gold from England, who stole a company in Colombia called Monomeros, who became multimillionaires by stealing what belongs to the people of Venezuela. They provoked us. They believed with their bold faces that they could steal, ask for sanctions, ask for invasions, send a letter to the government of Netanyahu telling Netanyahu, go and do in Venezuela the same barbarity that you're doing in Gaza. They are now coming to ask for the vote of the people, as if the people have no memory, as if the people doesn't remember all the damage they did.
And we stay in Venezuela, where, according to the Confederation of Industries, the sector had a 16.9% growth during the first quarter of 2024 compared to the same period last year. The industrialists recognized the importance of the incentive that the national government gave to entrepreneurs and their trade. Our correspondent Santiago Corey with the details.
Since the creation and application of government credits, entrepreneurs are part of growing and recovering Venezuela. Carmen Ascanio, owner of a block factory, tells us about its development.
Mi proyecto ha tenido mucha evolución.
My project has developed a lot. This year for me has been a year of much production. I thank FONAE for the support, for the credit contribution. We have a lot of sales. People are calling us to place many orders. We want to keep moving forward, although we really need another little push. We are very grateful for the push they gave us, and we want to keep moving forward. I would like to tell the community, to all Venezuelans, not to give up, to keep moving forward, to have faith and a positive mind, to set goals, not to fall asleep, to make our dreams come true because we can.
Cement, aliven, sand and gravel are part of the elements to produce blocks of all sizes, which from the sector of La Mata de Charallave in the state of Miranda go to the hardware stores in Caracas, Ocumare del Tuy and other destinations.
We are in charge of distributing a block that has been produced with good quality. The mixed designs are already in his 3 models, either 50-50, heavy or only aliven, and with a good finish, which is what the end customer is looking for. In general, sales have grown this last month. There have been a lot of material rotation. It is a shame. People buy from us and we, the suppliers, make the request. But yes, there has been a growth. We can see that there has been a growth in our profits and our sales.
From production to distribution, and from there, the wheel keeps turning towards the social territories where the blocks become the necessary foundations for the construction of communal areas.
Se adquirieron 1.500 bloques de calidad para nuestro proyecto.
1,500 quality blocks were purchased for our project. This is going to be our mission base thanks to our president. It is going to include a home for senior citizens, a doctor's office, a preschool also for our territory. It will also include services for our pregnant women. They will be assisted here in our mission base, and all the missions are also going to be programmed from here. Also a community kitchen, everything built with real quality materials because we deserve it.
Se pidió bloque de calidad y trajeron bloque de calidad.
They asked for quality blocks, and they brought quality blocks. They didn't bring rubbish. I am a bricklayer, and sometimes you find that they're selling 5 blocks for $1, and those won't work. These are quality blocks.
Everybody agrees that to boost the country's economic growth, it is necessary to improve the competitiveness of industry, generate jobs, and recover the purchasing power of the people who live in hope.
Desde la Cámara de Marcos da Silva, Santiago Corey, Caracas, TeleSUR.
We now move on to other topics. In Brazil, on the occasion of the World Environmental Day, the landless movement MST carried out massive planting throughout the week for the reforestation of the areas near Rio Grande do Sul. The initiative of the MST movement is part of the National Day in Defense of Nature and its people in cooperation with indigenous communities, universities, and Lula da Silva's government agencies. The massive planting is being carried out from a helicopter with 12 tons of seeds of Jucara and Araucaria trees, species at risk of extinction. The main objective of the movement is to increase biodiversity, confront global warming, and help regenerate the flora that was destroyed by the floods and rains that affected Rio Grande do Sul.
It is an extraordinary experience. First, the initiative of the organized social movements, of the landless rural workers movement, plus the indigenous communities, to have this concern with a project that can generate income and protect the forest, in this case the Atlantic forest. It is an alliance between universities, social movements and government that demonstrates that it is possible to preserve and produce healthy food for the population.
We have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and also share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with teleSUR. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the South. After an important meeting in New Delhi, the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, secured the backing of his coalition partners to form a new government. In a statement issued by the National Democratic Alliance, the Bharatiya Janata Party-led coalition informed that they had unanimously elected Modi as their leader, thus he will have the support needed to be appointed as Prime Minister for the 3rd consecutive time. The national head of state is scheduled to be sworn in this Saturday, June 8th. The Prime Minister's party won 240 seats after being the most voted force in India's general election, and the National Democratic Alliance won with a majority of more than 290 seats in the 543-member parliament. In Sudan, more than 9 million people have been internally displaced due to the ongoing armed conflict in the country. The data was reported in a statement issued by the United Nations Internal Organization for Migration, which also warned that the number could exceed 10 million in just a few days. The organization affirmed that after more than a year of internal conflict, the clashes between the army and irregular groups are causing the largest forced displacement ever known in the country. In this context, the entity called for an immediate ceasefire of hostilities and urged to allow the access of humanitarian aid to mitigate the risk of famine. And on Wednesday, the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov continued his agenda in Burkina Faso as part of his African tour. The Russian Foreign Minister met with the acting president of Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traoré, expressed the Russian President Vladimir Putin's best wishes to him and reaffirmed Moscow's openness to dialogue with the African country at the highest level. Lavrov previously visited the Republic of Guinea and Republic of Congo, where he held talks with the leaders of those countries on economic and military technical cooperation. It should be noted that this is Lavrov's first visit to Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso. In other news, the French justice banned on Wednesday the sale of Mexico's 1986 World Cup golden ball won by Diego Maradona and ordered its seizure until the dispute over the trophy's whereabouts gets resolved. The Argentine football star's trophy was due to be auctioned in France on Friday in what could have been a record sale for a sporting object. With the decision, the Versailles Court of Appeal upheld the request of Maradona's heirs, who claimed the object had reappeared in 2016 after nearly 3 decades, had been lost after it got stolen from a bank safe in Italy in 1989. And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and also on TikTok. For TeleSUR English, my name is Belén de los Santos. Thank you for watching.